This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.
Welcome to another episode of the Grow My Clinic podcast. My name is Ben Lynch, and today we have a very experienced guest. Joining us today is Joseph Pine. Now, Joe helps businesses conceive and design new ways of adding value to their economic offerings. He teaches them how to grasp the nature of the emerging experience economy and envision their role in it, whether it be staging experiences, guiding transformations, or mass customization. He and his business partner, James Gilmore, are the best-selling authors of The Experience Economy, where work is theatre and every business a stage. I love that. Today, we're exploring mastery of delivering amazing client experiences. Joe, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be with you and with your audience.
Fantastic. We're so passionate about experiences, especially in the healthcare industry. Often we make the distinction between the health service, the technical elements of anyone's profession, how they might be helping a client in their health needs, but then the client care experience is something that I think we all got into health for, is because we love working with people, we love making them feel great and having an awesome time with us. So to have you on board to dive deeper today is going to be a real thrill for many of our listeners. So I'd love to start by asking you, what do you mean by the experience economy and the progression of economic value?
Well, the progression of economic value basically talks about what has happened to create economic value over the millennia in which we've had business. And it starts with the agrarian economy based off commodities, the things you pull out of the ground, grow in the ground, or raise in the ground. And then it shifted into the industrial economy thanks to the Industrial Revolution beginning in the late 1800s or late 1700s in England, where goods were the primary economic offering. And then the latter half of the century, it shifted into the service economy, where services became the predominant economic offering, where services are what people were looking for. And what happened in the service economy is that goods became commoditized, being treated like a commodity, where it had no differentiation, where people didn't care about the brand or the features. All they care about was the price. And that increasingly is happening to services as well. The internet is the greatest force of commoditization, and it commoditizes not just goods, but services as well. In the U.S., what used to cost several $100s to buy or sell a block of shares with a full-service broker now can cost as low as $3 with an internet-based broker. And what that means is that goods and services are no longer enough. The goods and services are everywhere becoming mere commodities. So it's time to move to a new level of economic value, to go beyond the services to staging experiences for our customers. And the most important thing to understand about this progression of economic value is that experiences are a distinct economic offering, as distinct from services as services are from goods. It's basically when you use goods as props and services as a stage to engage each and every individual in an inherently personal way, and thereby create that memory, which is the hallmark of the experience. So we're shifting into an experience economy, an economy where experiences are becoming the predominant economic offering, where experiences is where growth in jobs and GDP is going to come from.
Wow. So you've really made a clear distinction that experiences are their own economic offering.
Correct.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you mean then more practically? What does an experience kind of look like? Or how do we make that distinction from just that service customization that we're actually providing experience? Can you give us an example that you would use to distinguish experiences, and even then a medical example where you've seen in the medical industry providing these experiences?
Well, the one thing to understand also is that it's not like experiences are a new economic offering. They've always been around. They're just newly identified. The economists and the government will push the experiences into the statistics as services, but in fact, we can pull them out because they are so distinct. But we've always had sporting events and concerts and plays. You can think about troubadours, and more recently movies and nightclubs, and all of these are experiences. It's where people value the time that they spend, right? That's one of the key distinctions between services and experiences, that services are about time well saved, but experiences are about time well spent, that people actually value the time that they spend there. And that can happen in the medical field, in small offices and so forth. One company that brings to mind, particularly since you mentioned the subtitle of our original edition of the book is "Work is Theater and Every Business a Stage," is in fact Jungle Roots Dentistry in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a dentist's office that is themed after the jungle. And Dr. Culp, the primary dentist there, is known as the Jungle Doctor. And people go in and you see, basically it looks like a rainforest cafe. I mean, it looks like a jungle in there with trees, with plants, with all of these carvings that were made in the jungle. You sit on rocks as opposed to chairs in the waiting room. And they have animals and so forth that are carved into and created. So it's very much of a themed place. And it's a wonderful place for kids to go to. He's a pediatric dentist. And, people talk to each other in the grocery store or whatnot about, hey, I've got to take little Charlie to the dentist. And they say, have you been to the Jungle Doctor? Right? You've got to go. Yeah. And I was told that he recouped the investment. All the money he spent on this theming of his offices, he recouped it in less than a year.
Wow.
Because the distinctive experience that it creates.
Absolutely. And that's probably something going through a lot of clinic owners' minds is, wow, to have a purpose-built fit-out or change certainly the physical layout of my clinic to be able to facilitate these experiences is a huge capital investment. So to hear you say, look, in this example, the guy was able to recoup his money in a year, it just shows how distinct you can be in the market as well. So it sounds like, Joe, that these experiences are really tailored around the audience or the clientele that particular business serves. And so you might be looking at kind of tapping into, reverse engineering their interests and what they're into to be able to create these experiences. Is that how you would typically work with a business, is looking at their clientele and then bringing to life experiences that connect and resonate with them?
Well, you obviously do want to resonate with the clientele that you have. If you're a pediatric dentist, you're not going to choose a prison theme, for example, is what it is. But it also needs to be something that resonates with who you are. One of our other books is a follow-on to the experience economy. It's about authenticity, which basically is about how, you need to follow two key standards of authenticity in business, which is being true to self and then being what you say you are to others.
Yeah.
And in terms of being true to self, you have to know who you are and what you can do. I'm reminded of another dentist company I know is themed after Star Trek, where the hygienists are in the Star Trek uniforms, the little communicators on the badge. Now, I doubt they did that and said, there's enough Trekkies out there that we could build a business, just from them. It's like, no, we're Trekkies. We want exactly like that. And
yes.
This makes us look distinct, so it can go either way. You obviously don't want to do things that are antithetical to who you are as a heritage, but also you don't want to do things that completely turn off your clients.
Yes, absolutely. So then let's dive into some of those experiences. I've heard you talk before about the realms of experience, and perhaps this is some of the more practical filters we can use when creating experiences. Would you mind just sharing with us a little bit about the realms of experience that you talk about, and then perhaps how we might be able to use them in crafting and creating these experiences?
Well, sure. The four realms of experience, this is from chapter 2 of the book, describe the different ways that you can engage people based on whether you're more or less passive or more or less active, based on whether you absorb the experience into you or whether you immerse people into the experience. And all of these elements are there. You never have 100% passive or 100% active, 100% immersion with zero absorption and so forth. Mm-hmm. So the four realms basically, one is entertainment. Entertainment is where we passively absorb in the sights and sounds that are presented to us, like watching TV, going to a play or a movie or a concert. Then there's educational experiences where you are you go from primarily passive to primarily active. so that you can learn by what you are experiencing, the information that you're absorbing into. And then there are escapist experiences where you go from one place to another and do something there. And then finally, there is the aesthetic realm of the experience where you provide a passive immersion, where you're passively immersed in an environment that is so wonderful that you want to spend your time there, you want to hang out and just be. Mm-hmm. So you think of entertainment as providing a place and elements to enjoy, educational providing elements to learn, escapists providing elements to go and to do, and aesthetic is to just hang out and be. So in the Jungle Doctor's case, for example, they do have TVs that are in the waiting rooms. And you, in fact, not just the whatever the TV channel that's normally there. No, there's kids. So you're playing kids movies. That are in there as part of that entertainment realm. Educational realm, you certainly want people in whatever healthcare business you're in, whatever clinic you have, education has got to be a huge component of it. That what happens in the clinic itself is almost always a small part of the total healing process. So you have to educate people and help them think about what they need to do, so as to carry on what they learn in the clinic and thereby become more healthy. Escapist experiences is you can think about, again, the Jungle Doctor is very much like going from the normal environment to the jungle right there. But even in more normal clinic environments is what do you have for people to do there that makes them active within that? How do you make it very distinct from the other environments? If you're in a normal business strip mall or whatever, a normal business environment, what makes your place distinct? And finally, the aesthetic is what's a place where people actually want to hang out. I mean, you would think about the environment that you would create and think about where your goal is. People want to stop by even without an appointment because they love the place so much, or their appointment's done and they want to hang around, right? Whether that happens or not, that should be the goal. And I'm reminded of a wonderful medical practice, a one-person doctor practice also in Arizona and outside of Tucson. Dr. Greg Petersburg has a wonderful practice called Renaissance, and it's an anti-aging practice. And the idea is, how do we help people live healthier and live longer? And so he has only 2 appointments per day. You got a morning appointment, you got an afternoon appointment. It's after the theme of Renaissance, like the Renaissance is about the age of enlightenment. This is about the enlightenment of aging. But it's themed like a Tuscan village. You go in there and it's a beautiful environment. The aesthetics are amazing of people who do just want to hang out there. Every room is special built for the purpose of the part of your stay there. So there's a room just for the examination. There's a room for sharing the results. There's a room for blue sky thinking and being able to share, okay, this is what I think you need to do. They have a fountain right in the main area that everything sort of revolves around. And every one of the rooms is, in fact, sub-themed after the thinking styles of Leonardo da Vinci. If you've ever seen the book on that. So that there are 7 thinking styles or 7 rooms, and every one takes off on each one of those. So it is a place that really does hit the sweet spot of the experience by being entertaining and educational, by being very much escapist of going from the normal environment, going to Tuscany to have the medical analysis done, and then with the aesthetic realm of providing a wonderful place that people just want to be.
Wow. That is truly, I just want to go there right now. That is phenomenal. So, Joe, there's a lot of clinics out there and they're going, the reality is I've, hired out this building and we've set it up with a couple of rooms and we're treating our patients as they come in. We do a good job. We deliver a reasonable service. And I want to take them back to the very top of the discussion that these are distinct offerings, distinct from services. They've already set up their clinic, right? They've already got their kind of layout and service. Where's the starting point? I mean, the example you just gave there is incredible, and that is obviously someone who's doing it really well. But For the novice, for someone starting out or looking to kind of relaunch with this idea of delivering experiences, how would you advise them to begin that process?
Well, the first thing to do, particularly if you do already have your have your place that you have created, is to understand again that in the experience economy, work is theater. And it's not a metaphor. I mean, work as theater. I mean, work is theater. That whenever you are in front of customers, whether they're patients, family members, whoever it may be, whenever you are in front of them, you're on stage, you're acting. And you need to act in a way that engages your audience, that engages the people there, with engaging and being the key thing with an experience. So the thing about theater is that it doesn't require any capital equipment to be able to direct workers to act.
Yes.
To understand, how you do things. The basic distinction between services and experiences is what versus how. That services are the what. That's the functional activities you have to do. You have to check people in. You have to get their address. You have to get their medical information. You have to direct them to or lead them to a room. You have to take their vital statistics, whatever it might be. You have to perform the services. But how you go about doing that, that's what turn any mundane interaction into an engaging encounter.
Absolutely.
There's a famous medical journal article from The Lancet, the British medical journal, The Lancet, way back in September of 1994 by a couple of doctors. And the title of it is Acting in Medical Practice. And they say back then that and this is long before we wrote the book, that we think that doctors must be actors. In addition to demonstrating clinical acuity, the physician is expected to assume a role depending upon the particular situation, the particular patient. Yes. If a physician does not possess the necessary skills to assess a patient's emotional needs and to display clear and effective responses to needs, then the job is not done.
Yeah. And
that's the case in any practice.
A tremendous distinction there. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I speak to a lot of clinic owners and they say, well, that's fake or phony, or it's not genuine, not authentic. But, they're carrying on different actions, behaviors outside of their role. When they come to the office and they're a physiotherapist, the way they interact is different than the way they interact with their friends and family members. And so they are acting, whether they call it that or not.
Right, Ben.
Yeah.
Right. You got exactly. Acting can be fake or phony if you're being fake or phony.
Yeah.
But acting can be very real. Acting is fundamentally about making choices, just as you point out. It's about choosing what parts of myself to reveal to those in front of myself. And we all act differently in front of customers than we do our friends, in front of peers than we do our bosses, in front of family than we do strangers. Doesn't mean that we're being fake or phony in any one of those, right? It's choosing what parts of ourselves to reveal. Acting is choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's a level of deliberateness and purposefulness in looking at
intentionality is the word I love.
Oh,
right?
Brilliant.
Intentional.
Yeah, intentional about each interaction that we have with our patients while we're working. So perhaps that is something that clinic owners can do, is look at the touch points or interactions that they have with their patients and then sort of dissect how they could be more deliberate. And one of the distinctions that I loved from your work, Joe, was personalized, engaging, and memorable. And there's some filters that we've certainly used when looking at those interactions. Is that how you'd go about it? Really, I'm getting into the nitty gritty here because I want people to be able to go to their office today or tomorrow and go, okay, if I sit down, what can I start with? Is that a process that would work, or do you have a better distinction there?
Well, no, those are all very good. You look at all the key characteristics of experiences that it's about engaging, right? You need to engage each person. And to best do that is by being very personal. You need to reach inside of people to engage them. So the better you customize the services you have, the easier that's going to be. So why don't you remember who your patients are when they come through the door, right? They remember you. It's not like you don't have a list of who's coming, right? You got an appointment list. Why do you make them check their address and phone number and that sort of thing? You already have this information. Why do you make, I was just in the doctor last week, as a matter of fact, and they made me fill out this information that they already had.
Yeah.
Right. That's not the way to do it. So customize those services. right? And create that memory. It is about doing something that they're going to remember. You can think about, what are signature moments in your place? What are things that people are going to talk about and remember? The classic one with kids is, of course, giving them a lollipop. They remember that, right? They remember that, last winter I got a lollipop. But what are other things that you can do for kids and adults that really cause them to remember who you are and to cause them to want to come back? Now, obviously, you still got to do all the service stuff right? You got to do all that right.
For sure.
But on top of that, you can use these elements to create a distinctive experience. And by the way, imagine if you then built an office purpose-built with intentionality for what you're talking about. And you start from that ground floor like the Jungle Doctor did. I'll give you another example is Vance Thompson Vision in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, is an eye doctor. And he built his own place that is basically themed and shaped like a cornea, with the outer things where the color is and that, and with all the natural light streaming in, and then the retina, the nerve centers where everything happens. Regarding theater, they have backstage areas and front stage areas. Every room that you go in actually has two doors, so that the customer, the patient, will go out one door, but the lab technician and the doctors and so forth will go to a backstage area, so they're never doing offstage things in front of the customer. They can even customize. They have the beautiful lighting that they do, again, because it's all about the eye. They can customize that, whether it's to match homecoming colors of the particular, of the local high school, and that when it's homecoming weekend. They have a patient pad, a piece of technology that they use to customize the experience. It also has procedure videos, educational elements, information, and even games for kids to play to occupy their time and so forth.
Yes, I love that distinction of on stage, off stage, and making the distinction between the two. It really keeps people engaged in that experience, I can imagine. Wow. Some real pearls of gold here, Joe. I'm interested to know, over the last 12 months or so, what have you seen in terms of the shifts maybe in technologies or strategies or methods of people providing experiences, and how might that filter into the coming 12 to 24 months? Like what's trending for you at the moment? What's really top of mind?
Well, interesting is, one, let me make a point that I think it is important to use the term of staging experiences versus providing or delivering experiences, right? Those are service words, and the vocabulary matters. One of the best things I've seen, actually, not in healthcare, is Carnival Corporation, the cruise company, has announced an Ocean Medallion, which is an IoT device, right, an Internet of Things device, that as they're ramping it up, and the first implementation has been in the last 12 months, and eventually it'll be on all 100 plus ships, and they haven't all guests, but right now it's on a few ships with not all the guests. And this allows them to know who everybody is, that you don't have to show your passport when you get on board, because you've already uploaded in advance. You're ocean ready, as they call it. And as you walk up to the gangplank to get up, your picture and your name pops up, and they verify that, you have submitted your passport information. So they just greet you by name and you walk on board. When you get your stateroom, the room opens automatically as you touch the door, because it knows who you are and what room you're in. They can even remember your multiple different preferences based on the context you're in, so that when you're in the pool bar or in the pool deck with your kids, they remember that your favorite drink is an iced tea with no lemon. But when you're in the bar with your buddies, it's a mojito. And when you're in the restaurant with your wife, it's a glass of Shiraz. They basically mass customize the entire experience, giving every guest and every family unit a mass customized itinerary with personal experience invitations about what they can do. And I think that sort of thing is going to come around more and more in various different industries. And obviously doesn't require an IoT device to do. There's a lot of reasons for to use that on a ship versus a phone, but so much can be done with the person's own smartphone. Where, like at Neiman Marcus, for example, if you have the Neiman Marcus app open when you go into the department store, it identifies you and it sends a message to your personal sales rep. Your sales associate, who then looks you up and looks up what are your styles, what are your color preferences, what have you bought in the past, and can arrange a meeting to give you a personal style consultation there while in it. And if you want to be anonymous, you just don't open the app when you go to the store. So we'll see more and more things like that happening, as well as, of course, there's more and more use of virtual reality and augmented reality. There are many dentists and others who show movies on the ceiling, and some are now starting to do virtual reality experiences. But I worry about that if you get too far away from them knowing what's going on to their mouth and so forth. that bad things will happen, and all of a sudden they start yelling at something going on in virtual reality. But those are some things that are going on here.
Terrific! That is fantastic. And I think there seems to be so many possibilities of how you would stage these experiences. I love the distinction of the language. How you would stage these experiences for someone. Joe, if you could give an overview, if you're brought into a business and they've asked you, Joe, we believe in this experience economy, we want to deliver it, we want to be distinct. How would you go about it? If you could give us kind of an over-level view of what are the things that you would do to go from woe to go in transforming or crafting and staging these experiences?
Well, the first thing I do, and it gets back to intentionality, is I would get intentional about the entire experience. I would, in particular, think of what is my theme, right? Theme is the organizing principle for the experience. It doesn't have to be fantasy like Disney theme parks. It doesn't have to be in your face like theme restaurants. It's simply the organizing principle for how you decide what's in the experience versus what's out of the experience. You think about the age of enlightenment and the enlightenment of aging, right? How that theme can transform everything that you're doing and how it sets up what place you want to create and so forth. You think about a theme of being the jungle doctor, sets up what you want to do in that. So what is your theme? What's your organizing principle? And then everything can then flow from that. In terms of how you design your offices, so you have positive cues that create that theme. You get rid of negative cues that don't fit with the theme. You engage all five senses while you're in there. And how do you do that? And imagine this. What smell is the greatest? I already gave the answer there. What sense is the greatest part of memory? Right? It's smell, of course.
Yes.
Often, and particularly in medical offices, is the best we do is eliminate the bad smells. And what that tends to do is it gives the impression of people that this is a place that needs to be cleaned, right? That if it smells antiseptic, you're getting that. Well, what are the positive smells? How do we engage people? What smells would fit in to our experience? Right. Then going through the 4 E's is great, and how you hit the sweet spot in the middle by having aspects of all four of those, customizing it, and how do you get individual with every one of your patients, every one of the guests of your experience, which is another vocabulary thing to use. That if you're staging an experience, you have guests, not just customers.
Yeah.
And then theater. Right? What is the theater that you want to perform on your stage? How do you direct your workers to act? How do you give them roles to play and help them characterize those roles, even give them rehearsals? And backstage areas. You can't expect people to be on 100% of the time. They need an area that there are no guests, where they can be backstage and do activity that belongs back there in order to have the wherewithal that it takes to be able to create a great experience.
Terrific. And I think the theme there is just intentionality, as you said at the very top, which is that there is so much thought behind each part interaction of that experience. One thing I want to just quickly come back to, because I hear a number of listeners going, that all sounds great, but I've still got to get the person better. And you did say it earlier, Joe, but to bring it up, obviously, you have to be providing a good service. You have to actually be getting results and health outcomes for your clients. Let's absolutely make that a disclaimer. But these are starting to look at how do we differentiate ourselves. And we know that if you're engaging people like this actually helps them in their health journey and their journey towards wellness. So this is the added layer. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Well, that brings up an important point I wanted to make sure we discuss too.
Yes.
When you talk about helping them on their journey to wellness, that in fact, there's one more economic offering in this progression of economic value. And that is when you go beyond an experience. In fact, you use the experiences to guide your customers to change,
to help them achieve their aspiration. And all of healthcare and clinics in particular are really in the transformation business built on top of experiences. The transformations are life transforming experiences that change us in some way. And nobody ever goes to a clinic without having an aspiration, whether for themselves or for their kids or for another loved one. They have aspirations. And in the bottom line, it's about helping them achieve those aspirations. Vance Thompson Vision again, they talk about their theme of changing lives by creating vision, right? And they recognize that they are changing life when they install a new cornea, or when they do cataract surgery, or when they do LASIK surgery. It's not just vision that's improved; it's a life that has been changed. Yeah. And how do you go about ensuring that to happen? So I think it is imperative for every clinic to understand that at the bottom line, it's about outcomes.
Yes.
It's not about inputs. And outcomes are fundamental to all transformations. They're fundamental to healthcare. They're fundamental to clinics, is providing the outcomes that people want. And that's why I do actually so much work in healthcare, generally with hospitals, but also recognizing that research shows that the better the patient experience, the better the outcomes. And that's the bottom line.
Oh, there's not a better note to finish on than that, Joe. I love it, because we are moving to, and part of being a health professional is having outcome base, having an evidence base behind your practice, but rather than just maybe helping someone in their acute need of, sickness, illness, injury, actually helping them achieve their aspiration, their outcome. That transformation, boy, oh boy, that is amazing. That is absolute gold. And there's a hell of a lot of practicality about what you've covered here, Joe, in terms of the realms of experience that people can look at and go, how well are we doing this? Or how can we transform and stage experiences around these four realms? And how can we stimulate and engage their senses? How can we customize it even more so and maybe even anticipate their needs ahead of time? Incredible practicality. I want to say thank you so much. If there's one parting piece of advice or a golden nugget that you want the listeners to leave with today, what would it be, Joe?
It would be to understand what business you're really in. And it's not the service business. It very much may well be the experience business, but I encourage you to even think about being in the transformation business and thereby create the great patient experience in order to affect and change their lives.
Absolutely. Now, Joe, I know a lot of people wanting to reach out to you and connect with your work. We've got a couple of books that you've written that people should absolutely read. One of them is Mass Customization, the New Frontier in Business Competition. The other is The Experience Economy, which is brilliant as well, and what we've referenced a lot here today. Another one is Authenticity, What Consumers Really Want. And there's another one as well, Joe.
Yeah, the last one I'd point out is Infinite Possibility, Creating Customer Value on the Digital Frontier. Ooh. So that is all about virtual reality, augmented reality, about 3D printing, which increasingly is being used in medical practices and so forth.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely sink your teeth into there. Is there any other way that people can connect with you and follow up your work, Joe?
Yes, you can go to our website, www.strategichorizons.com, strategichorizons.com. There's a contact page that if you'd like to get further information, get our occasional emails on the events and the writings that we do. We hold every year a Experience Economy Expert Certification Program, 4.5-day immersion in the experience economy and everything that we talk about, including customization and transformations as a part of that. And we have one certified experience economy expert in Australia that came to our course 2 years ago, and certainly would love to have more.
Fantastic. Oh, that's terrific. We'll put that link in the show notes underneath the podcast on our website so you can easily click there and head on over. Joe, thank you so much for being here today. There's incredible gold, practical wisdom inside of this episode. So thank you very much.
My pleasure, Ben.
Awesome. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery. We'd really appreciate your honest reviews and ratings on iTunes or whatever sharing listening platform you use. And if you could connect it with a friend, share it with a friend, we'd love to pass on and connect more people into the community here. You can head over to clinicmastery.com for all of the show notes, and there's a whole bunch of free resources that you can get access to about how we're helping clinics change their experiences that they deliver their clients as well. So, Joe, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Grow My Clinic podcast.
This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.